In this video, I'm going to talk about what the best class is in Dark and Darker. Now, the answer to this question is not a simple answer. I could just say Ranger, but it's not necessarily that simple because there's multiple elements to this game. There's the team play factor, with they're playing as a group of three. There's playing as a solo into the groups of three, and in the most recent playtest, they added actual solo play. So what the best class is going to depend upon which game mode you're playing and which way that you want to play it. So I'm just going to start going through the different scenarios of what class is the best for what thing in no real particular order. So let's start with solo players. If you're actually a solo player, then generally the best classes are going to be a ranger or a rogue. And the next best after that would be probably fighter then wizard or fighter then barbarian. Obviously cleric's the absolute worst for solo because you can just heal yourself. You don't do very much damage. But yeah, so rogues can open and close doors real fast, and they can hide to make de-aggro enemies, which allows them to just run from enemies, open doors, close them behind them, and then just ambush people and then run and disappear. They're faster than any other class. They're just the best for running around, being stealthy, and getting out with a bunch of money and just killing random people and escaping. Like, if you get really good at it, they're insanely strong as a solo player. Rangers, on the other hand, they can't quite get away with the same level of that, but they still have a lot of resourcefulness, so they can still open and close doors fast, and they can shoot at people from a distance. So ideally, you can kill people before they even get to you, and also you can clear mobs the most effectively as a solo, which makes Ranger possibly the best solo class right there with Rogue. Fighters, close third place because they can use any weapon with one of their perks, so they can do what a Ranger can do, which is shoot things with a bow. But they can also get enough melee gear and armor and stuff that they can out-melee most of the other classes. So they're just good for mob clear. They're good for survivability, all that. But they don't. What they don't have is they can't open doors as fast as rogues and rangers, so they can get caught in rooms a little bit more easily. But they still have 15 resourcefulness, so it's still not bad. So they're kind of like the third best. And then wizard can go invisible to de-aggro enemies, but they open doors super slow. But also wizards with their spells have a lot of potential for winning fights as a solo. So that's why I put them in, kind of third or fourth. Barbarian also right there, just because they're tanky and they can just kill things. So, it's okay. But generally as a solo, best is going to be rogue and ranger. Well, let's think about solo from a different perspective. What about if you're a brand new player to the game? What's going to be the best class for you to play? Well, it depends. Are you playing team player solo? Let's start with beginners playing as a solo, which is what most people do. Generally, you're going to be in a similar position, but it's slightly different, where Ranger suddenly becomes probably the best solo one because you have some self-heal with Ranger rations, and you can just kill people from a distance, and it's easier mob clear. You don't start dying to the mobs as much. And then Fighter's probably second for new players because of same thing as Ranger. They can use a bow, so they can clear the mobs really easily and safely. But also Fighters have self-heal as well, only one, though, per round, and they can, they're tankier, so they don't have to worry about messing up as much. They're like the best melee class, basically, so they're good. And then for learning the game, Barbarian would be the best, actually, because you can just go in with default gear and just run in and start swinging at everything you see until you get a good feel for the melee combat. So they're like, Barbarian's honestly the best class for beginners if all they're trying to do is learn as fast as possible. Play Barbarian with default gear and just run and swing at everything you see until eventually you get a feel for it. But just actually trying to, get out and escape and build your wealth and play the game like that, Ranger then Fighter. And then Rogue after that, probably, because Rogues, it takes a little while to learn, takes a little more skill, but the potential is so much there to just hide and disappear and de-aggro things and sneak around, basically, and easier to stay alive and figure the game out. All right, let's say, what if you are a new player playing as a team of three? What's going to be the best class in that scenario? Well, in that scenario, it depends. Are you playing with friends you actually know, or are you just playing with totally random people? Because there's a lot of nuance to it. Like, if you're actually playing with three, it's not what's the best class, it's what's the best combination of classes. Whereas if you're playing with random people, it's what's the best class for these groups of people, for, like, what's going to be, on average, the best with whatever gets thrown with you when you go, find people with the party finder, just go in random matches. So it's kind of hard to give a perfect answer on this. But if you had like a dedicated team, then there's a few combos that are really strong. Basically, it's like, are you going to have a team that hinges on having a cleric or not? That's like a big thing. Because if you have a team of three, cleric is kind of hard to learn. But if you have someone who is a cleric and they're actually healing you, then you can combo a cleric with barbarian or fighter, and then maybe throw in a ranger or a wizard for good measure for some range damage. Or you can do the cleric and a fighter, or cleric and two fighters, both of which have bows. So that way you've range damage and stuff. Like, there's some stable builds you can do that are pretty good as like the best classes for team play. But there's a lot of different combos. I mean, I've seen people succeed as 3 rogues who all go invis and just pop up and stab people instantly and kill everyone. So you can make things work, but the more generic things are like you either run a cleric and then run with like a melee guy and a ranged, or a cleric and then like 2 melees. Or if you're not going to do that, then it's better to have like, 2 melees and then 2 ranged units and then 1 melee as a distraction is usually a good combo for team play. If you're playing with people you already know and you're all working together and choosing your class and knowing you're going to be playing together. One combo, for example, is to have either 2 rangers or a ranger and a wizard, and then have a barbarian as your third, and have the barbarian just build like full tank and just have him be a distraction while these 2 just, mess everybody up. So there's just a lot with team play. It's too hard to give what's the actual best class because it depends on the other 2 people you're playing with. Now, as for a universal, like you are playing with 3-mans, but you're just playing with random people every time. Like, what's the best class in that scenario? I would say Ranger is probably the best in that scenario, maybe followed by Rogue again, because especially Ranger, because you can easily support them without risking your life. And then if they die, you're like hopefully the last one to die, and then you can resort to the runaway tactics, and you can just open a door and run away. So that's a pretty stable one when playing with random people. It's pretty probably the best overall class when playing with random people. Rogue's good because you can also fight. You can also just easily disengage and run away. And if your team dies, you can just play like a solo and just leave and just run away. Very easy to get away from that. And then Cleric is a great one if you're playing with just random people, because everybody will want you in their party and everybody will be happy to have you there. And if they die, as long as you leave doors open, you can try to run away. And if you can just run into the plague as the cleric, you can always just come back later. You can just run the plague, heal yourself, come back in, and then just res people. And then just keep going and stuff. But that's a little bit harder with randoms or whatever. But, it's probably going to be Ranger, then Rogue, and then either Fighter or Cleric. Fighter, because Fighter's so stable and consistent. Wizard and Barbarian, I mean, yeah, of course you can do it. But is it the absolute best for random pickup games with strangers? Like, I don't know. I mean, Wizard would be fine, but Ranger's really going to be the top dog for consistency and getting out alive the most often with just 2 random people in pickup games, basically. And I guess one last thing to think about, best class for just like noob stomping. Like you go in and you're fully geared out by yourself and you're playing against a bunch of people who aren't very good. And it's like, how can you just rack up like as many kills as possible if you're really good at the game and other people are not good at the game? Then Barbarian might actually be number 1 in that scenario. Because if you go in, you're actually geared to the teeth as a barbarian, and you're fighting people who don't really know how to fight you. You can just go in and kill everybody, and you're so tanky and have so much HP that you can just burn through them all. And then Wizard's also really good in that scenario if you really know what you're doing, because there's so much nuance with spells that you can really just outthink people and outplay people like crazy. And then Ranger's also still always there. Ranger is honestly, my verdict here is one last analysis on this. Let's do one more analysis on best class. Best overall class, all things considered, all categories we just talked about, probably Ranger still. Ranger's still probably the most versatile one. They have self-heal. They're consistent. They can do damage without much risk, but they can also do burst damage in certain scenarios, especially at certain ranges. It's like they have a high skill cap, so if you get really good and hit a bunch of headshots, you can just win no matter what, basically. Ranger's definitely still the best class overall in most scenarios if you want one that just spans across multiple categories: team play, solo play, pickup games, etc. And then in that same train of thought, like what just fits over in like every scenario, not just little like one like solo only or something like that. Which one fits in all scenarios pretty well? Again, Fighter is just really versatile and strong. Like I'd put Fighter as number 2 probably in that scenario of best class, because it's just because you can use a bow, so then you're like a budget ranger, but you're also way better at melee. You do have a self-heal. You have a sprint. You can latch on to people and just melee them down. You have good mob clear. Like, they're just very consistent and stable across all different scenarios that you'll find yourself playing in. After that, what's most versatile all around would probably be Wizard and Rogue, I would say, are tied for 3rd. Wizard, just because they have so many tricks that they can use to take advantage of people and win, but they also have ranged damage, so that way they don't have to get close, just like how the Ranger does. And then Rogue is just because you're so much less likely to die. You do have extremely high DPS if you build right. You can help your team, but you're also it's harder to be super consistent as a Rogue unless you're insanely good at it. But they're pretty versatile. Barbarian Clerics seem to struggle as far as just. You just put them in an overall in all types of gameplay and stuff. It's like you have to know what you're doing and have a purpose and a direction with these two in order to actually really pull them off and get like the max amount of value with them and succeed in everything from solo to team to pick up games and everything. But again, you can get good at anything. Right now, I mean, I played this game a ton, and you can make anything work really. So, you know, if you're watching this video because you don't know what to pick, then you should just pick based on what you think you'll have fun playing, because right now, the game's balanced enough that you'll be able to have fun playing anything, and you'll be able to do well playing anything if you build it right. Like, any of these, like, I played Cleric for like all of the last playtest, and I had a blast, you know? Was it the best? I don't know, but it was definitely the most fun. So it's not like there's no classes right now that are insanely underpowered, is what I'm trying to say. So you can, you know, you can get by with pretty much anything and still have fun and succeed and win games and stuff. So don't worry too much about that. All right, that's my input on the best classes. I know it wasn't a very flashy video, but hopefully it helps you out. I mean, I've played like 3 playtests now, and this is my opinion on all the different scenarios of what class is best for what scenario. So hopefully it helps you out, and hopefully that helps you pick a longer-term class decision for yourself. Also, if this video helped you out and you want to return the favor to me, you can check out this game that I'm making. I have it on Steam. It's called Art Gallery Simulator. I'll link this page in the description of this video below the first paragraph. And if you want to help me, just go there and wishlist it. It'll just tell you when the game comes out in like March or April, whenever I launch it. It doesn't even make you buy it or anything. It just literally just tells you when it comes out. So like, if this helped you and you want to help me, just go there and do that. It's a game where you run an art gallery, start in the slums, get a middle class art gallery, and then eventually get an art museum, make money off admissions and stuff. It's gonna be a pretty fun game. But that's it, guys. That's my take on the best class is right now in Dark and Darker. I'll probably make a newer version when the game actually launches, but for right now, the playtest in February is when I was making this, and that's about where we're at, is everything I talked about in this video. So yeah, hopefully it helps you out, and hopefully that helps you make a decision on which class you want to play in Dark and Darker.